is Mandy Sanderman, and I'm a science teacher from Iowa. You're going to be watching this video because it sounds like you missed one or maybe more than one days of class, and this video is going to help you catch up. So this video is going to include 3 different class days. You may want to use the chapters feature to find the actual day that you missed, but we'll be starting right now with day 1. So the unit that we are going into is a biology unit for matter and energy within ecosystems. We do want to take just a moment and consider that there are going to be some possibly disturbing images and ideas that come up in this video and unit. This unit revolves around fire, and there are going to be classmates or perhaps yourselves that have had past trauma in dealing with fire. So if you have that, if you are concerned or anxious, if you have classmates that maybe are showing that concern or anxiousness, there are some resources that are available. You can find those at that tiny URL, so tinyurl.com/B2 mindful, and that can help you during different times where you might be feeling that anxiousness appearing for the things that we'll be talking about. So make sure throughout this unit that you take care of yourself and you take care of your classmates and utilize those resources as you need. So now we're going to begin with day 1 of lesson 1. Some of the resources that you will need if you happen to have your science notebook at home, feel free to grab that. Otherwise, just using some paper to write on and draw on, that will be perfectly fine as well. We'll have a reading that's coming up. We have a few handouts that you'll need. There is a resource, which is a separate presentation deck for a visual inquiry. And then there is a home learning assignment. So as you look through, be mindful that these URLs will be popping up again, or you're welcome to snap a picture to grab them now if you like. But this is not the only time that you will be seeing these short URLs. Okay, so as we think about this phenomena, what you're seeing right here is an aerial image of an area in Alaska, and this was taken in spring of 2016. And scientists noticed in this area that we had new forest fires popping up right next to scars that were left by old forest fires. So these are called fire scars. And this was from a fire that occurred in the fall of 2015. So you see these sort of brown areas here. And then in the spring of 2016, new fires randomly appeared kind of near the edge of those old burn scars. Just to get you familiar with where we're talking about geographically, this is in the Arctic. And so the Arctic area would be up here at the north. So different areas in the Arctic that you might think about would be the Arctic Ocean. There's parts of Canada up there, Russia, Alaska, Greenland, Iceland. Those are all areas of the Arctic. And that's really where our focus is going to be throughout this unit. At this time, I want you to find the reading. Again, the short URL is up there, the tinyurl.com/B2 fires. Take some time to read through that resource and record any questions that you come up with in your either notebook or that piece of paper that you have grabbed at home. So when you're ready, you're going to hit pause. And then when you have finished with that reading, and that taking of notes and ideas in your notebook, you'll come back and start the video at this point. So go ahead and hit pause and come back to us when you're ready. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you had a good time going through that reading. I do want you to take a moment and just jot some initial questions. I'm going to pause and give you some time. If it's not enough, feel free to hit pause to get some extra time. I'm going to pause for about a minute. But I want you in your notebook to be jotting down some questions. What do you want to know about that fire and the system that it was a part of? What other questions do you have as you start to write down? New things might pop in your mind. So I'm going to be silent for about 1 minute. If you need additional time, I will prompt you to hit pause at that point. If you would like a little more time, go ahead and hit pause now. And now that you've got those questions in your notebook, you're going to want to hang on to those because you'll be sharing them with your teacher when you return to class. At this point, we're moving into a visual inquiry. So we've understood a little bit about the Arctic system, a little bit about these zombie fires, but now we want to understand more and around different aspects. So there's a handout available. If you happen to have a copy, maybe your teacher gave it to you in advance, that's great. If not, you can either make a copy from the Google Drive, or you can print it at home and write down on your own. It is up to you, but you will find that file at thetinyurl.com B.2 notice. Again, you're welcome to make a copy that you can edit so you can type right in that. You're welcome to print it, or if your teacher gave it to you in advance. So pause this video and go ahead and find that resource. Okay, so now that you have that resource, you are going to be engaging on a visual inquiry. And you'll be looking at some slides that will contain data and images. And again, these are coming from real fires involving real people and real destruction to the natural and designed world. So as you go through the slides, be thinking about the categories that you have on your worksheet and how it might look. And as we do that, we want you to remember to be respectful. These are humans. These are non-human components as well, but we're going to be respectful in terms of our words that we're choosing. And remember, there is that mindfulness resource. If you have a past trauma with fire, you're welcome to take the moments that you need, utilize that mindfulness resource to take care of yourselves. So you have in front of you your worksheet that you're going to be capturing the information on. You are now going to be going through the visual inquiry. It is on a slide deck, and you will find that slide deck at tinyurl.com/capital B2 inquiry. And that slide deck is organized by the dimensions that are on your worksheet. So you will take time, you will go through that slide deck, you will capture things that you are noticing, and capture and things that you are wondering. And you are welcome to add questions to that sheet as well that might help you figure out the cause and effect of these fires. It's likely that this is going to take you some time, so you're welcome to hit pause. You're welcome to stop the video and then come back right to this spot. So take a notice of the timestamp, because like I said, this is probably going to take you a good 20 to 30 minutes as you work through that slide deck. So again, slide deck is at tinyurl.com/capital B2 inquiry. And you have your dimension sheet in front of you where you will be capturing your noticing and wonderings. So go ahead and hit pause now, and we'll see you when you're ready. All right, so welcome back from that visual inquiry. If you were in class, you would be doing a turn and talk. You don't have a neighbor probably to talk to. So instead, I want you just to take a moment and I will be silent for probably about a minute. Again, if you need more time, you'll hit pause. But what I want you to do is look through the information that you have captured, review what you have noticed and what you have wondered about zombie fires. And then I want you to circle on your worksheet any places where you think you maybe have identified possible causes and effects. So review and circle. Again, I'm going to be quiet for about 1 minute, and I'll give you a warning if you need more time that you can hit pause at that point. If you need more time, go ahead and hit pause now. If you are ready, then let's move on. In your either notebook, if you have it, if you don't have it, feel free to put this on a piece of paper. I want you to construct your own personal definition of zombie fire at this point. When you get back to class, you'll want to check in with your teacher and classmates and kind of compare and contrast what they co-constructed versus what you came up with so that you can add to your own definition. Go ahead and hit pause in this video and fill out a personal definition of zombie fire and start the video again when you're ready. Okay, so now you have a personal definition of zombie fire written down in your notebook. You'll compare this with your classmates when you get back, but for now, that's going to be your working definition. You have a home learning assignment that I want you to take some time and find that URL. So again, tinyurl.com, capital B2, capital HOME. So B2 home, the B is capital, the H is capital. You can either print it, you can make a Google copy so that you are able to edit it and type on it. You're going to be connecting with a family member, a trusted adult, a peer, some community member that you are going to be able to connect with to ask them the questions on the home learning. You will want to have this ready to turn into your teacher when you return to class. So once again, grab that tiny URL. You're welcome to make a copy of that file so you can type, or if you have access to a printer, you're welcome to print it off. But you will want to complete this home learning and hand it to your teacher when you return to school. We have now ended lesson 1, day 1. So if you only missed the first day, you are welcome to stop the video here. If you also miss day 2, you're going to continue on with us. So as we move into lesson 1, day 2, I want you to grab your science notebook. Again, if you don't have your science notebook, a piece of paper works perfectly fine for this. And at the top, write related phenomena. So once you have that listed, take a look at the questions on the screen. What related questions emerged as you made your initial observation of zombie fires? What were some of the questions that popped up? You're going to jot those on that piece of paper. What other events do you or someone you know experienced when they were affected? You might need to pull on that home learning assignment if you were at school for day 1. Maybe you were able to hear from some of your classmates. If you've been at home for a couple of days, you may only be able to pull from your own experience or from that of the adult or community member that you talk to. And also consider how could fire in another community, for example, a wildfire, a zombie fire, impact your community, either directly or indirectly. So pause the video now. Feel free to jot down information, answers to those questions as you think about what else is related in your world to zombie fire. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, so now that you have your own ideas, I am going to share some related phenomena that did not come from your class. This would have come from a different class that went through this unit. So when you return to class, their list may look very different. But some questions that had, or some ideas and questions that had come up from another class, a student had shared about they had heard that there were fires burning in an underground coal mine. It was an abandoned coal mine, but somehow the coal in that mine started on fire and was burning under the ground in that mine. A student remembered that there was poor air quality in their area when there were wildfires in Canada, and that smoke had drifted south into the United States and into their particular area, and they had air quality warnings. A student raised the question, are there certain trees that are more flammable than others? Like, they had told a story about they heard that some pine trees needed fire so that their seeds could open up. And others had heard, well, different trees are totally destroyed by fire. So are certain trees more flammable than others? We had a student that related a story that low air quality days can really make it hard to breathe, particularly for somebody that maybe has asthma or some type of respiratory distress. And so that whether it's smoke from a campfire, from a wildfire, having those low air quality days were impacting health. And another student said, okay, so what about like a campfire? If somebody had a campfire, could it restart as a zombie fire later on? So, all great questions, all great ideas. Again, compare this list to the list that your class created when you return to class. At this point, you are going to try to take all of this information and put it together in a visual model of your very own. So when you're ready, you will hit pause. You probably want either a blank piece of paper or your science notebook if you have it at home. But think about, how does that matter and energy flow within a zombie system during the fire? You can use pictures, symbols, words. You should have your components, those interactions, those bigger mechanisms, if you can come up with those. And any questions that come to mind as you construct your model. Remember, as always, this is an initial model. We're getting first ideas down. We're not worried that we're necessarily right. It's just this is our thinking at this time. So go ahead and hit pause and create that model. Welcome back from making your model. What I'm going to have you prepare for, grab your notebook or a piece of paper. You're going to make a T-chart. Chances are you've probably done these before, but if not, there's an example on the screen for you. You're going to put similarities on one side and differences on the other. If you were in class, you would be looking at a small group and their model ideas. Since we're not able to put you with your class right now, instead, you're going to get to see ideas from a different class, but you'll be able to take those ideas and do this exact same activity, noticing similarities and differences. So you will have access to those so you can go back through them. I'm going to go through them probably too quickly for you, but then you will be able to open up that separate slide deck and go through it again on your own. So first I'm going to show you these. Again, this is where you'll be able to find them. I will put this URL back on the screen at the end of when I show you, so don't worry about capturing it now. So you will have a small group of 3 different people. This is person one's model. Looks like they have a now and a later, kind of a squiggly line that's dividing, whatever is happening. Looks like maybe we've got some burning. They wrote pine and larch tree in here. Then we had a burned scar. So then later on, looks like we've got burning written down here. So this was group member number 1. Group member number 2 looks like this. We have, let's see, we've got some ice. We had some peat. We had some burning under the ice. Fire started later on. They had a tree on fire, some smoke, and some CO2. And then your final group members looks like this. We're talking about it's cold in the Arctic. Ooh, negative 76 degrees Fahrenheit. We have some peat. The permafrost is melting. Looks like the fire starts up again. We have looks like a tiger of some sort. And a lynx is in this one. So those are the 3 other members that you will be looking at. So where you can find those, this tiny URL, it will take you to a slide deck that has that. You'll be able to complete your similarities and differences. And when you're ready, come back to the video. So go ahead and hit pause and come back when you are done with making your T-chart from those 3 other drawings. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had a good time looking at those 3 group member drawings. Now you get to take those ideas, maybe those differences that you saw in theirs. You're like, ooh, that was maybe a good one. Or those similarities of like, oh, we had this idea, but maybe I drew it differently than them. You're going to want to revise your own model with any of those new ideas that you were able to gather. Once again, hit pause. And when you're done with that revision, start this video back up. So your job, revise your model based on any ideas that came up from looking at your small group. Go ahead and hit pause. Okay, that model is now revised, and we are ready to move into a consensus model. So you maybe have done these before. We would be, if you were in class, getting in a big group, sharing our ideas, answering some of these questions, and making one consensus model from all of the different small group ideas and individual ideas that came about. Unfortunately, we can't put you in a circle with you not feeling well or being on vacation or just gone from class. So instead, I am going to show you a possible consensus model. This may be very different from what your class came up with. So when you return to school, you will want to find your class consensus model and think about, how does the one that you're seeing right now compare to the one that your classmates drew? How would you answer these questions about the components? Are they the same? Did your class have different components than the class that shared this with me? What about those interactions? How did your class model those interactions? What was being represented in those interactions? What was maybe some of the things going on behind the scenes, those mechanisms that were letting this zombie fire reignite? And what was maybe included in the zombie fire system, and what isn't? How is it being represented? So keep in mind this consensus model, but understand the consensus model that your class made is very likely going to be different. But you still will probably see very similar components, interactions, mechanisms, but they might be represented in a different way. I'm going to give you about 1 minute. In your notebook, I want you to jot down any questions you now have about the class consensus model. So get ready to jot down. I'm going to back up one slide so you can look at this consensus model I'm sharing, and you have about 1 minute. So I'm going to back up. In your notebook, jot down any questions that you have or new questions that have arisen now that you've seen a possible class consensus model. All right, finish up whatever question it is that you might be writing down in your notebook. If you need more time, you're welcome to hit pause. And if you're ready, we're going to be moving on. At this point, we have now finished day 2 of lesson 1. So if this was the day that you missed, you can stop the video here. If you missed day 3, then you'll want to continue to watch the video. So here we are at day 3 of lesson 1. So if this is the day that you missed, this is where you'll want to start the video. If you only missed days 1 and 2, you don't need to watch this section. So for today's lesson, you're going to want your science notebook or a piece of paper, and we will be utilizing a handout. Your teacher maybe has already given this to you. You'll recognize it later on in the slide deck, and I will put this URL back up. It's a progress tracker. Maybe you've done these before. So this is the URL. You're welcome to grab it now if you want to, or like I said, we'll give you this URL back again here in a little bit. Okay, so We're just going to take a quick moment to recap. So you're going to want to look back at the various things that you have noticed and wondered. You filled out a handout in which you looked at the different dimensions about zombie fires. You recorded noticings and wonderings there. We've thought about related phenomena. You did a home learning around that. And you have your initial model, and then you revise that initial model based on models of others in your small group. And then from there, we even made a consensus model. So I want you to look back at all of those items and record some questions in your notebook. I'm going to probably give you about a minute, and then I'll prompt you to pause if you need it. That need additional time at that point. But you're thinking about what questions do you have so far, based on all of this information that we have taken in. So go ahead. I'm going to give you about a minute, and I'll let you know if you need to pause when that minute is up. Hopefully, you've recorded some questions. These are going to be questions that when you return to your class, you will be able to add them to your class's driving question board. If you don't have enough time or you don't have those questions written down, go ahead and hit pause now. And now that you've got those questions ready, we're going to go ahead and move forward. You maybe have been through a driving question board before with your teacher. This is an example of a possible driving question board based not on your classmates, but on another class. So we're going to just take a look at these, and you are going to be able to put your questions on your class driving question board when you return to class. But here are some of the questions that this class came up with. What's causing the fires? How does this affect animals and the plants in that area? And why the Arctic? How is ice affecting the fires or the likeliness of a place to burn? Why does peat burn so long? Why is the air quality so bad? How do the fires eventually get put out? Have these fires been happening throughout history? What's the impact of these fires on the whole world? How do we get the data for CO2 and O2? How does this relate to my life? What does fire need to burn? How much carbon is actually being released? So these are just some sample questions that came from other students at this point in the unit. When you get back to your classroom, take a look at your driving question board. Make sure you get to add your questions that you recorded onto this board. And then look at how your class questions compared to this class's questions. Grab your science notebook or a piece of paper if you don't have it, and think about what kind of investigations would you need to do, or what kind of data would you need to be able to answer the questions you've written down and some of those questions that you heard me reading from that other class's driving question board. You're going to add these ideas to your science notebook or on a piece of paper. So, what ideas do you have for possible investigations or data that you think we would need to be able to answer the questions? Once again, I'm going to be quiet for about a minute, and then I will let you know at that point in time. And if you need more time, you'll be welcome to hit pause. So take about a minute to record ideas for future investigations and data that you might need. If you would like additional time, go ahead and hit pause now. So let's move forward and see what possible ideas others maybe had regarding ideas for data and investigation. Again, this didn't come from your class, but it did come from another class. So some ideas that came up from another class. Can we burn peat and observe how it burns? Um, how does temperature and ice affect the fire? And what is peat? How does it burn? What air quality data can we get? Data about soil and geology in my area. Can we talk to an expert and figure out what exactly fires need to burn? And where in the world are these things happening? Could we get a map that maybe shows us exactly where these fires are burning? So these are some ideas from a different class. Like once again, when you get to your class, take a look around, ask your teacher, ask your classmates, but find what your class came up with for ideas for investigations. So here's that progress tracker. Again, your teacher maybe has already given it to you. It maybe is a part of your notebook, but if it's not, here is that tiny URL. So you want tinyurl.com tracker capital B2. Go ahead and hit pause and come back either after you have made a copy of this that you can record on, or if you have access to a printer and you want to print it, you're welcome to do that as well. But hit pause so you can get a hold of that worksheet and then come back and I'll give you some more direction. All right, so you have your progress tracker. Whether it's on Google, whether you printed a copy, that's up to you. Maybe again, it was already in your notebook. So I'm going to have you add the question from the driving question board. The question we're going to go with might be slightly different from what your class came up with. So you might edit this when you get to class, or maybe we came up with a very similar question. But add where it says unit driving question, you're going to write in what causes zombie fires to burn under the ice and what are the consequences? That's kind of the whole umbrella question that's pushing our entire unit. Again, what causes zombie fires to burn under the ice and what are the consequences? You then are going to add your lesson question in, which will go right here. And we've been working on lesson 1. And our question for lesson 1 is, how can fires burn under ice and release so much carbon? So right in this area, you're going to record, how can fires burn under ice and release so much carbon? I'm going to pause for about a minute to make sure you have time to get those 2 questions recorded on your document. Okay, if you need more time, feel free, go ahead and push pause. But what you are going to be doing now is completing this top row of your progress tracker to the best that you can. So, what are the things that you have figured out? So, what have we figured out? As you think about day 1, day 2, day 3, look back at your notebook. What are some things that you are figuring out that you can put in your progress tracker? How does what you have figured out help us understand more about our driving question? That will go here. And how does what we figured out connect to my community or yourself or have a larger scale impact? That's going to go here. And that final box, what questions do I have now? So you will want to hit pause. This may take you, a good 5 to 10 minutes as you reflect on all 3 days of lesson 1. But go ahead and hit pause and come back when you have that top row completed. All right, so you've completed that top row of your progress tracker. Make sure that you give that to your teacher when you return to class, um, or compare with a classmate, whatever the guidance is from your teacher on that progress tracker. The final thing I'm going to ask you to do for lesson 1 day 3 here is you don't have a neighbor to turn and talk to, but I want you just to reflect on these questions. Where do you think your class should investigate next? Where do you think they should go? You wrote down some ideas and data that you had. You saw some that another class had collected. I want you to reflect on, where do you think you should go next? What are the next steps? What investigations do you propose? And then when you return to school, you'll share that idea with your teacher and your class, and you'll see where it is that they're going to go next as they go into lesson 2. At this point, we have ended day 3 of lesson 1. So thank you so much for joining.